You had to know Sony wouldn't let Canon have the spotlight for long. This is their answer to the R5 and R6. It is the Sony a7S Mark III. And just like the R5 and R6, it has 4K at 60 frames per second video. It also does 4K at 120 frames per second video. And for the rest of the comparisons, just hold on a little bit because I have a lot of side-by-side footage. Let me tell you about it first. It has a stabilized 12 megapixel sensor, full frame. Now, 12 megapixels is a really weird number, right? Why so low? The R5 has 45. This allows it to do a single one-to-one readout of 4K video, so it doesn't have to do any math on every single frame. And that means it doesn't overheat. No overheating. I have tried and I have failed to make it overheat, letting it run for hours on end. Another Sony first is a flip screen. Yes, it's like they've been listening. And look, if I hit the menu button here, look what I can do. Yes, I can touch it. I can scroll through them, and it's better laid out than before. Sony fixed the menu system. It's not perfect. Some of the names are still confusing. It still doesn't have a search feature, but it's a step in the right direction, and it's on par with Canon, Nikon, Fuji, etc. The electronic viewfinder on here, I wish I could really show it to you, but it's absolutely amazing. It makes every other electronic viewfinder look terrible. In fact, it makes optical viewfinders look terrible. It has more resolution, 9 million pixels, but mostly it's just much, much larger. It's like you're looking through a window, and it's also extremely sensitive to low light. And I was like a little kid. I put my 85 f1.4 on there and I took it out and I just looked at the stars and everything was so beautiful. I'm having such a surreal experience because I can just see the comet through the viewfinder and it's brighter than day. And look, I can just punch right in, and this is with only 85 millimeters. And look at just how bright and beautiful it is. Look, here are some boats, and then there's the comet, but I can't see the comet at all with my naked eye. And I wanted to film myself, but my phone literally can't see anything. It's so dark out here. Really, that big viewfinder and the amazing low light capability of this, it's like some military grade night vision or something. It's downright creepy. They've improved the autofocus capabilities specifically for vlogging scenarios like this, though we'll have to test it out as we record our next couple of videos because I haven't been able to release any footage, so I haven't really used it for production work yet. Something else you video guys are gonna love, it has a hot shoe that accepts digital microphones. So I can just plug this in here with absolutely no cables and choose from one of many different Sony microphones. You can even get a Sony wireless lav mic receiver that listens to two separate lav mics and records them to the separate left and right channels for like when Chelsea and I are both on camera and we want to be able to edit and separate the audio in post. Just getting rid of cables is such a big deal to me because the cables inevitably get snagged. Another must-have for me is that it's got 2 card slots. Check it out. It takes CF Express Type A cards or SD cards. You can mix and match them in the same slots because they're almost the same size. This is the CF Express Type A card, and it's much faster than an SD card could be. But if you want to use your 2 SD cards in there, you can do that. And in fact, just about all of the different video settings work just fine with SD cards. I haven't been able to thoroughly test the SD cards because this is a pre-production model and it's a little bit buggy. For still images, subscribe to see our full image comparison review. I need to wait for Adobe to release their RAW processor so I can really do a side-by-side comparison with the other cameras. Of course, it supports RAW files, but also JPEG files and HEC files, which is just this new advanced codec which allows it to have 10-bit color in there, which is a big upgrade from JPEG's 8-bit color, and better compression. So it's like a newer technology that sort of bridges the gap between the lower quality JPEG and the higher quality RAW, giving you smaller file sizes with overall better editability and better quality. I also can't really comment on that because I don't currently have any software that wants to process those files. So again, subscribe to see that. Sony's also giving us a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi radio. And what that means is now we can wirelessly transfer all of those files without having to take the cards out or without having to hook up a USB-C cable. It'll connect to Wi-Fi, and then you can choose to transfer all the files from the day if you want to, or it can automatically send each still picture as you take it. It will not automatically upload video files for some reason, and it does this very, very quickly. I was getting over 400 megabits per second speed, and basically that meant that the files transferred in the background without me even thinking about it. I have them sending over to my FTP server, which is a NAS here, which automatically syncs to my computer. So basically, as I took every single picture, it was automatically ending on my computer, where Lightroom would immediately render the previews, and I could just sit down on my computer at any time and my pictures were there. And that's what I've been asking for forever, and it works just wonderfully. Note that the Canon R5 has a very similar feature that also worked really well. This is scheduled to ship at the end of September, and it's a little interesting that they're putting it in my hands almost 2 months early. I think they just wanted people to know about it before y'all went out there and switched over to Canon because you're so excited about the R5 and R6. And speaking of those, let's talk about how this compares. When you put it up against the Canon R5, well, the R5 has 8K video. That's 4 times the resolution of this 4K video camera, and you see it. The 8K video is sharper. If you're going to be publishing in 8K, or you're going to be shooting in 8K and then cropping down so you have some flexibility about the composition in post, the R5 no doubt looks better. But that 8K video came with some serious limitations. The Canon overheats very quickly, as short as 15 minutes in our real world usage of it. This never overheated. In rigorous testing, I really wanted it to overheat. I shot it for hours and it was fine. So it doesn't have 8K, but it also doesn't overheat. If you compare the 4K 120 and 4K 60 footage from this against the Canon R5, the Sony a7S Mark III is far better than the R5. The footage is sharper and it is cleaner. And that's because the R5 cannot pull out every single pixel when shooting at 4K 60 or 4K 120. That's because the R5 does line skipping. So it's literally reading like every other line from the 8K video and turning that into 4K video instead of combining all the data down. So is this an R5 killer? Well, it doesn't match it feature by feature. It doesn't do the 8K, and it also doesn't really work very well as a stills camera since it's only 12 megapixels. If you need a great high-resolution stills camera that also shoots video, the R5 is better for that, working within its limitations. But if you're trying to shoot 4K 60, 4K 120, the a7S is definitely the camera I would pick for its improved reliability and better video quality at those 4K outputs. But what about the Canon R6, which I'm actually using to film this with? The R6 video quality was a little bit better than the a7S Mark III, and that completely shocked me because that's all the a7S does. The R6 is $1,000 cheaper than the Sony, and it's got a 20 megapixel sensor. So it's going to be a better stills camera too. And overall, it seems like the R6 is looking like a better deal. But keep in mind that the R6's 4K 60 overheats in about half an hour, whereas this never overheats. And the R6 completely lacks the 4K 120 option in case you want to do some slow motion. We record and publish several videos a week, and we're gonna switch to the a7S Mark III for a little bit so we can give you real world experience on how it performs. So subscribe to see sample videos published with this, as well as our long-term conclusions to find out whether you should pre-order it, or maybe if those Canons are looking a little bit better. And don't forget, we have our summer sale going on. You can get 50% off our art and science of photography training. We go deeper than we ever have on YouTube because we have your full attention for 10 hours and teach you the things that we think people really need to know. Also, check out our professional portrait video training series where you can learn to actually make money with your camera gear. What would you like us to test about the a7S Mark III? Write a comment down below and I'll follow up when we do our future reviews. Thanks a lot. Bye.